This is episode 3. In episode 2, we had covered the first verse of chapter 1. In this episode, we will cover verses 2 to 11 from chapter 1. I will start off with literal translations first, and then I will point out a few interesting things about these verses. Starting off with verse 2. Sanjay Uvach, Drishtva tu Pandvanam Anikam Vyudham Duryodhana Tada Acharya Upsangamya Raja Vachnam Abravit. Sanjay says, Raja Duryodhana saw the army of Pandavas gathered in the battle array. Upon seeing this, he went to Drona and said, verse 3, Pashaitam Pandu Putranam Acharya Mahatim Chamo Vyudham Drupad Putrine Tav Shashen Dhimata. Duryodhana asks Dronacharya to look at the skillfully arranged military setup of the Pandava army, led by their commander-in-chief Drishtdyumna, who is King Drupad's son. Duryodhana calls Drishtdyumna as Drona's disciple, kind of tauntingly. Now this is an interesting story on how Drishtdyumna became a disciple of Drona, for he was born to kill Drona. Then verse 4 to 6 I will recite together. Atra Shura Maheshvasa Bhimarjun Samayudhi Yudhano Viratascha Drupadascha Maharatha Drishtaketuscha Chekitana Kashirajascha Virevan Purujit Kuntibhojascha Shavyascha Narpungava Yudhamanyuscha Vikrant Uttamaujascha Virevan Saubhadro Draupadeyascha Sarva Ev Maharatha. Duryodhana continues, on Pandava's side, there are exceptional heroes and great military commanders equivalent to Bhima and Arjun. There are Yudhan, Virat and Drupad, along with the mighty and brave Drishtaketu, Chekitan, Kashiraj, Purujit, Kuntibhoj and Shavya, who is a bull amongst men. Also, there is Yudhamanyu, who is very strong physically, brave Uttamauj, Subhadra's son, that's Abhimanyu, Draupadi's sons, and many other mighty warriors in the army of Pandavas. Then verse 7 is, Asmakam tu Vishishta ye tan nibodh dvijottam Nayaka mam sanyasya sangyartham tan bravimite. Duryodhana says, O best of Brahmins, which is a reference to Drona, I would now like to tell you about the leading warriors of my army. Verse 8 is, Bhavan Bhishmascha Karnascha Kripascha Samitinjaya Ashwathama Vikarnascha Somadatti Tathaivacha. There are personalities like yourself, Bhishma, Karna, Kripacharya, Ashwathama, Vikarna and Bhurishrav from my side. Verse 9 is, Anye cha bahva shura madarthe tyakta jivita nana shastra praharna sarve yuddha visharada. And there are a lot many warriors on our side who are ready to sacrifice their life for my sake and are all skilled in art of warfare, equipped with various kinds of weapons. Then verse 10 is, Aparyaptam tad asmakam balam bhishma bhirakshitam, paryaptam tu idam etesham balam bhima bhirakshitam. The strength of our army is unlimited and we are skillfully marshalled by grandsire Bhishma, while the strength of the Pandava army marshalled by Bhim is limited. And then verse 11 is, Ayaneshu cha sarveshu yatha bhagam avasthita Bhishma ev abhirakshantu bhavantah sarva evahi. Therefore, I call upon all the generals of the Kaurav army now to give full support to grandsire Bhishma, even as they defend their respective strategic points. So these were the literal translations, and let's talk about what's interesting about all of this. So Duryodhana is showing who are on Kaurava's side and who are on Pandava's side and the names of the best warriors on both sides. There is one interpretation that this Kurukshetra is like a human body, Kriya Ka Kshetra, where there is a righteous battle or Dharma Yuddha going on every day between positive and negative forces. Positive forces are knowledge, yoga, intellect and rational discrimination. Negative forces are blind senses and unbridled desire. And Sanjay represents impartial introspection, who's evaluating every day on who's winning and who's losing in this righteous battlefield of Kurukshetra. The names of warriors taken in verses 2 to 11 represent the positive and negative traits found in all of us. For example, Kauravas represent blind senses or unbridled desires, and they are the side of blind Dhritti. Their king Duryodhana means material desire or unbridled desire. Bhishma represents ego. And the same goes for other Kaurav warriors who represent other negative traits such as lust, anger, greed, delusion, pride, and envy. If you go through Paramahansa Yoganand's book, he has detailed each trait of the warriors in Sanskrit. The Pandavas represent positive traits. For example, Yudhishthir represents calmness and being firm in crisis. Bhim represents power and strength. Arjun represents self-control and skill. Nakul represents adherence to good rules, and Sahadev represents perseverance. Also, other warriors such as Virat, Drupad, and others too represent some positive traits. These verses basically define the warriors who either represent positive or negative traits. This is an important interpretation. Now, the other important interpretation is in verse 10. Verse 10 is Aparyaptam tu asmakam balam bhishma bhirakshitam, paryaptam tu idam itesham balam bhima bhirakshitam. The first line says, the strength of our army commanded by Bhishma is immeasurable and unlimited. But there is a word aparyaptam, which somewhat shows that Duryodhana feels that while his army is immeasurable with unlimited strength, yet it is insufficient. And the next line is Paryaptam tu idam etesham balam bhima bhirakshitam. The strength of their army, commanded by Bhim, is measurable and limited, and yet sufficient. In some ways, this reflects that the negative forces associated with blind and unbridled senses, which are material desires, ego, lust, anger, etc., are unlimited and immeasurable, and they can take you anywhere. But if the positive forces on the side of knowledge and rational discrimination come with all their power, they are sufficient to control the unlimited strengths of the negative forces or the Kauravas. This is an important interpretation, and therefore I really like verse 10 in chapter 1. Finally, there remains one question. So who's Lord Krishna and what does he represent? And the answer is Lord Krishna represents the pure and eternal soul. Thank you.